Good morning, everyone. We see some people still joining, so let's wait a little bit.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I see some people still joining, so let's wait a little bit more. So hello, everybody. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's MetaHeritage Investor Ready Pitching Training Craft Your Killer Pitch. My name is Eliane van Brantegem. I'm project manager at Crusoe, which is an entity that is in Galicia, and we are an association that is a network of universities of the southwest of Europe, and I will be moderating today's session. We're very happy that you're joining us. We hope that today's training will help you better understand what investors are looking for and how to present your project in a clear, convincing, and most of all, in a very memorable way. Next slide, please. In today's agenda, I will first briefly introduce the MetaHeritage project in which I'm part of. I will also introduce the MetaHeritage Pitching Showcase, which is a training that is part of the project. And then we will follow with the training session led by Audra Shallal from European Business Angel Network, Craft Your Killer Pitch. I will then conclude with a quick question and an answer session. Next, thank you. Just before we begin, just a practical few points. Please note that today's webinar is going to be recorded, that you can submit any questions using the chat, and you can raise your hand during the question and answer session if you prefer to ask your questions directly, okay? Please feel free to use the chat to comment, give us your ideas and your reactions during the session. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to introduce what is the MetaHeritage project. Please, next slide. As said before, the MetaHeritage project is a capacity building I3 project. As some of you may know, I3 means Interregional Innovation Investment. It's a project that was founded by the ERDF and is managed by the European Innovation Council, an SME executive agency. It's a project that will last 2 years. We started last year at the beginning of the year, and it will end at the end of the year. The territorial scope of the MetaHeritage project is 8 European regions across 6 countries. We are 10 main partners, and you can see our logos there, and 5 associated partners. What is the main goal of the project is to increase the competitiveness in the digital cultural heritage sector. So we expect 2 results of the MetaHeritage project. From one side, as said before, is a capacity building project. So we expect a lot of capacity building tools. And from the other side, we are building an ecosystem. We call it our innovation map, in which we are gathering all the actors related with innovation, digitalization in cultural heritage and tourism. And the main goal is to know each other, exchange, and maybe create projects together. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I think maybe it's blocked. Yeah. So within our activities, we launched the MetaHeritage Pitching Showcase, which is an event in which we want to connect high potential projects in the digital, cultural, and heritage tourism with investor, strategic partners, and innovation stakeholders. So we launched a call. So I'm going to send you the link in a couple of minutes on the 10th of June. And this call targets ideas within the field. And we are the call will be open until the 7th of August, and there will be different activities during the call in which this training is part of. We will close the call on the 7th of August. If you are interested, you just have to upload your pitch on the link that I'm going to send you. There will be an evaluation period from the 7th to the 10th of September. And on the 11th of September, the jury will meet in order to select the best 10 ideas. These 10 ideas will have a moment with a tete-a-tete with investors, a one-to-one moment, in which investors will help them to perfection their pitch. And on the 5th of October, they will be able to show their pitch in front of a room full of investors. So if you have an idea and you think your idea is good, first listen to Audra and then present your idea, and let's hope to meet you on the 5th of October. Now I'm going to introduce our expert, Audra Shallal. She is an entrepreneurship and investor readiness expert at the European Business Angel Network. Audra, thank you so much for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Okay, good morning. Well, actually now, good afternoon. It's great to be here, and I'm happy to see that you're looking forward to actually maybe joining this program with the MetaHeritage and preparing your pitches for the possible jury. Next, yes. So I just wanted to quickly let you know that I'm an entrepreneur and also angel investor, but also an expert advisor for international organizations such as the European Commission, United Nations, OECD, but also as an EIC jury member for the European Commission, particularly in deep tech with ICT, health, and energy. But I go quite full circle in entrepreneurship because I do believe that in order to help mentor and coach startups and also scale ups, you have to be on the ground yourself. So that's why I started up companies. I'm actually going to be launching another company, this summer. Also, I'm quite involved in different angel activity. I'm industry agnostic, so it's really kind of I invest in that kind of what they say in French, that coup de cœur. So I like to invest what I feel that to accompany that entrepreneur on a journey, and if I feel their passion and purpose, they have a good team behind, they have a good vision. Then if I feel that I could actually accompany a lot of my expertise, I'll jump on board too. But then also sometimes on international organization side, they're not in tune with what's actually happening on the ground on the entrepreneurship side. And even on what angel investors need when it's coming to cross-border investing, when it's coming to investing with other countries, regions. So this is where it becomes important with international organizations to be more in connection. And that's where with the European Commission, I've been involved in their D2 Excel programs with deep tech, with renewable energies and all, also in the, the creative industries and also in the sport and health and medtech. Now, I had in EBAN, I've been a board member for several years, but I had just launched last year the EBAN Sports, and EBAN Sports is something that I felt very important because it's showing how sport tech goes completely horizontal in all different verticals. When it comes to health, wearable devices, when it comes to media broadcasting, even cybersecurity, when it comes to esports. Also, what's quite interesting is that because of gaming, and also even filming, that is all integrated within the sports with the culture and creative industry. So that becomes quite important. Now, what makes me quite interested in the MetaHeritage and what MetaHeritage is doing, what they're doing, and also European tourism. Actually, I saw just here, Eliane, that you mentioned there was the European historic houses. Actually, you know, my family in the United States, they're living in Savannah, Georgia, so I know a lot about those historic houses, and particularly in Charleston, South Carolina, too. And they're quite historical with a lot of European influence there. But I was a professional classical ballet dancer in my former career. That's what brought me to France. I'm American in Paris, and for the past 30 years, I'm half Lithuanian. So I do quite a bit also in the Nordic and Baltic regions. But as a professional ballet dancer, also I was very involved as a mécène and benefactor with the Paris Opera Ballet. And so on the culture side, it's quite important for me. Also with the Louvre, and I have colleagues also with the AI. Connected with the, AI and art, who actually one of my AI guru entrepreneurs, Angelo Dali, that's very well known also in space tech, science and all. He's actually been the first in Paris to launch a big art expo on AI and art, which was too forward thinking. This was years ago. So now I said to him that, hey, there's actually this program that could be quite interesting, even with his projects, because of his forward thinking, that now the timing is here. But what I'm trying to show you here as a presenter, and as you can see my background, it's important for you also to see with your background that sometimes you may not think that some things are connected, and you feel that you want to drop some of your personal, or you want to drop some of your past experiences because you feel that that doesn't have to do with the company you're developing now or not. But no, it's all interconnected. And that's why, me as a professional ballet dancer and all, it was all about presenting. It was all about, when it's coming to having to be, on top of it for your audience and presenting. That helped later on for me when pitching, and which also me knowing how to communicate. Who are you communicating to your target audience? Because we could have very good presentations and very good projects, but if we are not communicating and tailoring it to the proper audience, then you could miss those yeses and get more no's. And it's not because you don't have the innovation. It's not because you're not showing that you have the right vision and that this could be disruptive technology. It's because you're having these other missing links, and that the audience that you're targeting, whether it's angel investors, whether it's VCs, crowdfunding, public funding, it's very different audiences. And so you're not changing what you're doing, but you're changing how you're communicating. And that's where it becomes very important. Also, I was a high-level competitive fencer and horse show jumper, but I started that when I was 48 years old. And why did I do that? Was because I tell all my entrepreneurs, you need to know how to fail fast, fail forward, fail often. And if I got back into my own comfort zone and I'm not failing fast and failing forward, failing often, because I got back into my own comfort zone, I can't tell you entrepreneurs and startups and scale-ups to do the same.
Sim, mas
So
nós
I
neste
put
momento não
myself
temos nenhum companheiro, temos tudo mestres e um aprendiz. Um aprendiz que foi iniciado há 2 semanas e tem 65 anos.
I think someone doesn't have their microphone
Yes,
off.
I rehabilitated, sorry.
Okay, yes. So, and so that's where, I had gone into the fencing because I hate competition. So many people who know me now, I think I even see Gup Sport there. So with Sport Tech coming from Tbilisi, Georgia, I see you on the screen. So would think that, oh, yes, she is very competitive and, she got a few gold medals here, there. But actually, I hated competition. And that's why I put myself out of the comfort zone. I went into horse show jumping obstacles because of to overcome my fear. It actually helped me become a better investor because usually, I go with my intuitions. But before I started hesitating, and with a horse, you cannot hesitate. You hesitate, you're not going to jump the obstacle. He's going to refuse. So it made me actually a better investor. I don't hesitate as much. My intuitions are pretty good. If I like the company, I like the entrepreneur, I see the vision, I see they have a pretty good go-to-market step-by-step approach, then, then I'm going to be much more faster to invest. Also, in the fencing, it taught me patience and strategy. Usually it's I want it now. So, in fencing, if you precipitate, you'll get touched. So sometimes, taking time doesn't necessarily mean you're losing time. That took me a lot to learn, because there was a moment I wasn't getting those touches. I didn't understand why I wasn't winning the matches. And my coach saying, you need to have more competitions behind you. You didn't start when you were 6, you started at 48. So you have others who have more experience, Olympic fencers, you have, all these competitive. So I started having smaller objectives. This is something for you to think about even in your startup company. What are your milestones? What, if you're looking for funding, like what are the small stages you're going to go? Instead of always looking at the big picture that if we don't get this money, we're not going to be able to go further. If we don't get this client, we're not going to be able to hit our sales turnover. This is where it's important to know that sometimes, by taking some time to do things, like correctly, actually will get you closer to your key of happiness. And it brought me closer to my key of happiness because after 2 years of just starting fencing, I qualified European and then qualified for the World Champions in Dubai, and at 52. So that's also what I want you all to know, as you're, embarking, either whether it's fundraising, whether, moving into new markets, that if you are motivated enough, and you're passionate and you have your purpose, it doesn't matter if you're 52, 60, 35, if you're pivoting, just like you pivot a business model in your company, anything is possible, because even me, an average person, was able to do that. So that's what I just wanted to leave you with a little, also why also I'll be now moving in, giving you all the tips on the 1-minute elevator pitch, also on your 5-minute, 10-minute blitz. Is because I actually, helped set up the first Women Angel Network in Paris. I'm on the Sophia Business Angels Network on the board, in the south of France with the Sophia Business Angels Technology Park. I had co-founded Flying Fin Angels in the central Finland. That's with all the flying, fins and rally drivers in that region where they focus on sport, health, cybersecurity, and sustainability. And I helped develop the Nordic Female Business Angel Network, advisory board on the African Federation Business Angel Network, and helped launch the Bahraini Business Angel Network. So I'm quite involved in those angel networks, but also globally. And so when it's coming to presenting and pitching, I could say it's quite interesting that whether you're in the US, Europe, Nordics, Baltics, Africa, West Africa, Georgia, Caucasus regions, Armenia, usually you're still having the same pitfalls with most entrepreneurs when it's coming to business model, competition, and go to market, and a precise ask. So that's something that I'm going to further with you to precise, so that what are the must-haves within the pitch. Next. So within your elevator pitch, we always say, what is the purpose of the elevator pitch? Why have one? Why describe in 60 seconds? So many, of you would say, well, to advertise yourself, to gather interest, but is it just gathering interest? Is that enough? Just gathering interest? And that's why it's very important to know what is the purpose of the elevator pitch. It's to motivate your audience to act. And it's to motivate your audience to act. So if you're at a jury, it's motivating that jury to select you as number one. If you're at a business angel, it's motivating, the angel investor to want to be interested, to take you to an appointment to meet other investors at their angel network. And what does that mean? You see other investor angels to the network. So what I'm saying, motivate the audience to act, is that it's not just about motivating those that are within your audience or at your event or not. It's motivating them to want to contact more, to contact their other colleagues and investors interested, to wanting to jump on board, to want to invest with you, so that you see they will end up, you'll be able to end up raising that 500K. because one will not probably have a ticket of 500K. So that's why it's remember to motivate the audience to act. And I'll see if you understand that, a little bit further in the presentation. But also, who are your target audience? Are they shareholders, investors, clients, media? So, it's important because sometimes you have engineers and they are presenting and pitching. And this is even, we're going into series A, B, and you'll have scale ups and real deep tech. And with their pitching, they end up focusing on the product or the service, their technology, why it's so great, all the benefits. And we never hear the rest. Because remember, you're pitching your business. You're not pitching your product or service, because anybody could have a similar product or service, add some integral innovation, and so in the end, how are you making money? What is your go-to-market? Where is that vision? Do they have the right team behind? So this is where it's important, really, how you're also targeting. And that's when I say targeting audience, because angel investors, they're investing their own personal money. And VCs are investing other people's money. So you see, there's a bit different mindset. VCs are more bottom line. If they feel that you're not leading it, even if you're the founder, but you don't have all the right credentials and skills as a CEO, they're going to want to say that you need to move out and we need to put someone else, and we need to put, that will be able to lead the team and be more operational to reach these, these numbers. Angel investors, are why we say angels, also is because we're accompanying you, we're helping you. If you don't have a whole management team and there's a gap, the angel investors can help if they have the marketing experience, some industry experience, corporate experience, go-to-market experience, financial experience. So they can help you as advisors at the same time, which is quite important. So again, it's about motivating your audience to act. So also, next, there are 5 things in an elevator pitch, and it's usually the 5 W's. So always remember who's behind the idea, what's the idea, where's the marketing opportunity, when are you going to get to the finishing line, the milestones, and why. Now, why is so important? Because why is about your passion and purpose. Why are you doing what you're doing? What is the impact that you want to make? Because if you're just following trends and think, oh, okay, everybody's into AI, so let's add AI to my product and let's see what happens. This will give some of that innovation. Maybe we'll get more investors interested because they feel we're touching on AI. But if it doesn't make any sense and it's not adding any value to what you're doing, then again, following trends. This is where investors, why they want to really know, like, what's the impact you want to make? What is your purpose and passion? That's why they want to see also with your background or experiences. And that's why the storytelling becomes important. And that's where the why, having a little bit of a 30-second teaser in the beginning, crafting your storytelling, and creating a thread through your presentation. This is what makes the connection. What is the impact you want to make? And that's also why, when it comes to angel investors, many are impact investors. They want to know what impact you're making on the social impact, educational impact, health impact, environmental impact. And now they're even wanting to know, how do you monetize that? You're saying you're going to make, help reduce climate change by this much. Well, how are you monetizing that? And how can we see that you, in numbers, you are reducing that by a certain amount of years? Or when it comes to edtech, education, are you able to, if you're saying that you're going to be putting in all these coding schools, maybe with the foundation, you're showing that with every euro that you make in profit is going to go into a foundation that goes to coding schools that in Africa. But so it's about, if you're saying you're making impact, you need to monetize it, and you need to show how you're making that impact, particularly for impact investors. So next, so who's behind the idea? What's the idea? Where's the marketing opportunity? When are you get to the finish line, and why? Also, is it about, now why did I not say how? Well, of course, it doesn't start with W, but how, it's too long in a 1-minute pitch. How are you making money? How is this work? How is for later in your presentation. And that's why many get, when they, sometimes, you'll have a 1 minute or a 2 minute pitch. We do this a lot with Tech Tour. They have like a 1 minute, 2 minute pitch um, in the morning before all of the parallel sessions where everybody's pitching their events. So this is where they see that as their, and why is because not everybody can be in all the parallel sessions. So they're letting all the investors be in the audience to listen to all the companies, so that if someone happens to like a company that's not in their session that they're actually being on the jury for, they may want to have one-on-ones with them later. So that 1 to 2 minute becomes quite important. And if you are busy just talking about how the product, talking it, just focusing on the product, but not on the overall. Next. So again, remember that there's 3 types of listeners. You have your visual, so your presentation slides, whiteboard. You have digital, auditory, and then you have aesthetic, those like on the demo. So there's those that are able to click in more on the auditory side, others on the visual. They need to kind of follow on the visual, as you're communicating, and others aesthetic. So remember, you need to fill in those 3 audience members. Now, to see if you understood what I meant by motivate your audience to act. Imagine you're going to the movies. You have a movie, those movie trailers. They're usually 100 to 120 seconds. And why do you have to go and watch for like 10, 15 minutes all these different movies, that they're going to be showing? You came there just to see the movie. So I'm always asking you, so what's the purpose? Like, why do that? So you'll have some of the audience of you guys saying like, well, to be interested to go to that movie or to go buy the ticket. But is it just about buying the ticket? So that's why I want you to know, if you really understand, motivate your audience to act, because it's all about what's the goal, to act on it. So the goal is not to just buy the ticket, but it's to leave the theater and tell someone about it. So if you have Taken, and they're saying we're having Taken 2 and it's going to be taking place in Budapest with Liam Neeson, and someone says, oh yeah, the Taken 1 was really good. When is that coming out? When is it playing? And then they go tell someone else, who ends up telling someone else. All of a sudden, you have 5 times more people coming to the movie theater. And so that's the same, again, as I was saying, when you're pitching to investors, when, you don't know if you'll be in an elevator, if you're going to be at a restaurant, there's going to be these moments. And that's why I say you do need to practice your 1 minute pitch. You need to rehearse it so that it comes naturally and quickly when speaking about your company. Next. So I have this elevator pitch formula that I give this to newbie entrepreneurs. I give this to scale ups. I give this to serial entrepreneurs. It's very, as if you're at school at 6 years old, where the teacher is saying fill in the blanks. But this really helps to take your project and really channel it. So because already here you can see that we're already saying that this company is in this industry venture developing these products or services for these target market and customers. We're solving the payer problem using our unique technology and product. Our team is including, a 5-core team with an advisory board of 2 people and a scientific council of 3. Unlike certain competitors, we're offering, these benefits and dramatic improvements in the technology. And then I didn't put it here, but that's where you need your ask. So that's why it's always, don't forget your 5 W's and the 1 big A. Now the big A, the ask, is that here why I didn't put it was because, as I said, tailoring to audience, if you're pitching to shareholders or pitching to customers or pitching to partners or something, that it's a bit different, your ask. But here, as we're pitching for investors, we want to know, who are you, how much are you looking for? So I'm looking for, let's say, 200K, let's say for 10% equity. Why do we want to know the equity? Some want to avoid mentioning equity. Why? Well, some feel that, well, we can negotiate that later. But no, why we still want to get a general ballpark is because if you say 10% of 200 gives us an idea that you're kind of have a pre-money valuation of 2 million. And that just helps us in a ballpark to say, okay, could they justify that? What's their IP? Do they have a, a real good CTO? Who's and a team behind it? Who's their chief marketing officer to implement that go-to-market strategy? Do they, is it besides the IP? Is this disruptive technology? What is also are they able to, with their milestones, be able to show a lot of traction, with their also their product line, or if they already have their prototype, and what is their kind of future product lines. So you see, they want to be able, if you are able to justify that 2 million, with what you're already doing, and if you have your IP and the right team and the right advisory board and the right and your product or service pretty much already being commercialized with a certain amount of clients. See, this is what then it says, okay, that's credible, that we could pretty much justify it. Later you can negotiate it, but that's pretty much, it kind of makes sense. And then for what usage of funds? So we want to know, is it for R&D? Is it for your fine-tuning your prototype, marketing and sales, for your marketing campaigning? Because also, you see, sometimes you have startups saying, oh, we're going to for the team. We need to develop our team, because without the team, we aren't able to do X, Y, and Z. But if it's just the team, that's intangible assets. So for us investors, we feel like that could walk away. So we really want to invest in the R&D. We want to invest in the technology. We want, we could have a small margin of helping develop the team, but it shouldn't be a large percentage of your usage of funds, the team. So that's something for you to think about also. Also, don't forget that it's better to talk in numbers than percentages, because if you're saying that, yes, there's 20% of this target group that is, doing this, and we're taking 5% of that. When we don't really know, we may not be in that sector. We may be diversifying our portfolio. So we don't really know, like that even 2% could be quite big for your type of sector in what you're doing. So usually it's better to talk in numbers. Also, as next. So also, I wanted to tell you quickly about when we're about effective business pitch. So what I'm telling you about crafting your pitch. So I gave you that your 1 minute, and kind of working on there to stem from there, because and again, you can add, once you start working on that elevator pitch formula, you can actually add a little bit. You'll have a couple seconds, to give a little bit of a teaser, which I always think in an elevator pitch, if you're able to say that, something quantified, to the problem that brings attention to it, and the impact you're going to make to draw everyone into your pitch. That's what makes quite a nice killer pitch in a 1 minute. Now, many say that, okay, this one's asking me for a 3-minute pitch. They're asking me for a 5-minute. This one's asking me for a 10-minute. Then I even have my entrepreneurs, or if I'm mentoring them, like, okay, here's my 5-minute. Okay, I'm going to have to make a 10-minute. Actually, I have what you call the 10-minute blitz, but the 10-minute blitz can be a 3-5-minute. You still have to have most of those elements. So some will say, oh, well, with all those elements, Audra, that's too many slides. I don't think I'm going to make it in 3-5 minutes. But they always do in the end. But in the beginning, they're always hesitating. And I said again, no, because one message, one slide. Because usually sometimes you think, oh, it's a 3-5 minute. Okay, I'm going to put 3 elements together. I'm going to put the business model, the revenue model, and the target market opportunity in one slide. So that pretty much covers that part as I'm moving through. That'll get me through faster. No. You are going to be on that slide for probably 2 minutes. So, and then you're going to not make it for the rest of the presentation of what we need to know. Also, for the investor, he's going to be trying to focus on, oh, what is, okay, that's a business model. Is it a B2B, a B2C? Is it an SaaS? Is it HaaS? Who are they targeting? What are the revenue streams? But then when they see like revenue model with the financial projections, along with the target market, with your business model, it's too much information at once. One message, one slide. And when you have one message, one slide, it goes through fast. You can go through 10 to 15 where the investor is following you, he's moving. It also helps you to move. And that's why when you take a 10-minute blitz and you have all the elements, you're not going to go in as much detail. You see, in a 3-minute, you're going to go much faster through it, knocking on each point, 1 to 2 lines you're going to say, but the investor felt he got all the elements that he needed. And in question and answer, they will poke you there. In 5 minutes, you can go a little bit more where you could maybe, add a little case study after your, talking about your product and innovation and technology. 10 minutes, you have time to go more to elaborate on your go-to-market, and then also to kind of show how you could go into other verticals and explain things more and talk more about your competition and things. But you see, again, the elements don't change. Next. So again, when you're bringing in to the audience, and when I'm saying to bring in, what is your story is that, what is it, the paid or problem, okay, that you're addressing. Next slide. Okay, here's our solution. What is the solution to the paid and the problem? The solution, and then remember also, the solution, every entrepreneur may have the same solution. I'm now actually in sport tech, I'm getting a lot of companies that are wanting to have this dilemma of not losing talent. So they're kind of focusing on the parent, coach, and the athlete, and they're trying to create platforms and how to address this problem. But I'm already seeing quite a dozen of the same companies kind of addressing this. Is something wrong with that? No, this is good because it shows that obviously there's a pain, and you're having entrepreneurs in the sector feeling it, and so they want to find a solution for it. So that's why solutions may be the similar of how you're going to find the solution to that problem, but that's why you need the next slide, the product innovation, because usually the solution you mix it. No, please. I think. Yes. I said, when I say next, because when I say next slide, I meant in their pitch deck. So in the, that's why it's important on the next slide, your product and technology is there. Because before, when you have when you're talking about solution, we want to know the solution. Okay, we're reducing it by this much. We're increasing the amount of talent by this, these kind of metrics. Then we say, and how are we doing that? Here is the technology. Here's the product or service. This is what we're doing. Here's the secret sauce. Here's the uniqueness of what we have. That's on that slide. Once we know that, oh, okay, we see the innovation in the technology. It's quite disruptive, and we see that you found a very good solution to the problem. So then, how are you making the money? So that's when we want to know what's in the business model, and the business model is very important just after, because you see, again, it's about sequence. So I don't want you to forget that, sequence is very important. Sequence is because for investors, you're building on your story. And if you kind of mess with the sequence, it could be quite confusing. So could you please, the next, I'm going to see the, okay, and then the next. So you see, sequence is quite important. So after business model, that's when we want to know, okay, it's like how you making the money. So on your business model, are you a B2B? Are you a B2B2C? Or are you a B2C to G? Are you HaaS? Are you hardware as a service? Are you software as a service? Are you a platform as a service? That's what we want to know. That's clear. Then we want to know, what are those revenue streams? So many will say like, oh, subscriptions, licensing fees, royalties. Okay. But if you don't quantify it, it tells us nothing. So what gets you the investment? The more precise, the more quantified. So if you say, okay, we're having a freemium, and then we have €100 for an average, subscriptions, and then it's a 200 for premium. We're also doing licensing fees. We're getting royalties from here. We also get commissions from there. Wow, okay, we can see that you're getting different revenue streams coming from different, but we also get the pricing. Why the pricing important for us is because when you then talk about the market size growth on the next slide, you're showing where the market opportunity, what is your total applicable market, what is the service attainable market, and then you say if you're getting 2% of that, and we remember that with each user, the subscription fee is this, and that also they're getting a commission, from this target market, etc. Then we say, hey, this thing can go really scalable. So you see, that's why it's important sequence also. Once we know that, we see that even with 5% market share, they could that it's quite big for their sector for what they're doing. Then we want to know, okay, so then who are exactly those target customers you're targeting now? And once we see that, okay, this is their target customers now, and that, as they grow, they could maybe then, move into another customer group. But then where's the competition? And that's when we want to know afterwards. Okay, we see how they're positioned. We see the market opportunity. We see how they can make money. But then who else is out there? Now, what I like on the competition and the competitive grid is micro environment and the macro environment. What do I mean by micro environment? Micro means, a competitive grid that shows all the differentiating factors and technological factors. So, is it the pricing? Is it the type of technology, the interface? That's where we want to know compared to 3 or 4 of your direct or indirect customers. So when some say, well, we don't have, direct competitors. Well, then then maybe nobody wants what you're, offering. But but you maybe have indirect that are doing something a bit similar, but they're not doing exactly what you're doing, but it's showing that there will be a need. So that's where if you say that, well, not really competitors, or it's very weak, you are dead to the investors. If you do not have a good competition, and I'm telling you, I have seen this all over globally, the competition slide usually for 80% entrepreneurs, that's their weakest. And so the ones that are good is that they have that competitive landscape. Now, what makes one even better is if they have one slide on the micro environment and one slide on the macro. And the macro is the competitive matrix where you're showing the industry players on the matrix on your XY axis. That shows the industry partners, and it shows where your secret sauce is on the right-hand corner. So that shows on the macro side. And once we get convinced and say, well, that we see their competitive advantage, we see their secret sauce, we see their uniqueness. So then what's their go-to-market? How are they going to market? And that's what we want to know on your distribution and sales channel. What is your go-to-market? What are your first, for example, in France, and then will you be going then to the rest of Central Europe? Will you be moving into the Nordics and Baltics? How are you, taking that step-by-step approach? Once we see that this go-to-market looks quite scalable and ambitious, then we want to know, okay, so then who's behind it? And that's why the team becomes important to talk about it now in in your pitch. Not before, because sometimes they say, oh, because we're talking about the jockey and, because we're always saying, do we invest in the horse or the jockey? Well, everybody could have top, purebred horses coming from, the Middle East, North Africa, or wherever. But it's the jockey that's going to have that strategy, how to accelerate it to get him to the finishing line, before with their strategy. So it's the same with the team. Because we now know what the technology is, we now know what your go-to-market strategy is, and also the size of your ambition. That's what we say. Do they have a good chief marketing officer? Do they have a good chief technology, with the behind the innovation? Is this the chief marketing officer, and do they have a sales team getting you to get to your go-to-market? So that's where the team becomes important. And why do we always say you should have at least 3 on your team? Not because it's just, okay, if we don't get along, there's one that can help mediate. Yes, it's true, but because one is making the product, one is selling the product, and one is managing. So if you have a core team, it's fine. If you also have an advisory board, and that's why advisory board important, because if you have like the director of Facebook or the director of the Louvre in a museum, or you have some, big architect that is well known and their agency on the advisory board, they can also help with the missing gap in your team to help you along the way. But it also gives more credibility to investors that, oh, they got some good people on board. So even if they don't have a large team at the moment, they have a good advisory board, advising them. And once you show us, the great team behind, that's when we want to know then what are the strategic alliances and partnerships? How do you endorse that team? And that's what we want to know. And remember, partners, it's not about filling each other's weaknesses. It's not like, oh, if I don't have Google, it's not going to happen. So if we don't have that partner and you make it so important, it's about adding value. So you can do very well on your own, but if you get the partner and that partner works with you, you both add value to each other. So if they happen to walk off one day, it's not going to make or break your business. You're still able to move forward and reach your milestones. You'll just maybe reach your milestones a lot faster and gain certain market share a lot quicker, with a partner who could add value to what you're doing. Then once we know that you got the right people behind, and that's also on the alliance of partnerships to also show, did you get rewards? Did you get, don't forget that, and things. Then what are your financial projections? So that's where it's important. We just want to know the cash flow, on your revenue model, like very easily. If you could just go back up to that financial projection slide, it was like the previous,
Antonio, can you go back 2 slides, please?
Up.
I think, this one.
So we just want to know, these main, numbers, not any more than that, but and then a graph that shows your cash flow and where, you break even, where you are in 3 years, and your runway, because we want to know, is it going to take you 6-12 months? Because as you're raising money, by the time you get the money, that's where we want to know is that, do you have enough cash? Because cash is king to us. So you could end up having, good revenue, sales turnover, but then you could be burning through the cash and be in the red on a day-to-day. So we want to know, what is the burn rate? We want to know what's the runway. And make sure that if you have these hockey stick growths, you usually see that more from the men than the women. The women are less risky, so they want to show sustainable business. The men want to show that this is going to go scalable, IPO, we're going unicorn. So you have to be able to address those hockey stick growths. So usually what we investors do now is we reduce by 30% financial projections of the men and increase 30% by the woman, and we pretty much get the average, a little bit of what's actually really going to happen in the future. But this is kind of what I wanted to show you just on those financials. Okay, thank you. If you could just go back to that 10-minute blitz thing. And once we see that, okay, this is financially feasible, that's when we want to know, what are your previous and future milestones? What's the traction? What have you done? What are you doing now? And what are you planning to do? And then under that timeline, we want under it the financial milestones. So when you launch the company and when you set out, your prototype, when you got certification, what did you get grants? Did you have love money? Did you have angel investing? Did you have crowdfunding? That's where we want to know what you had used the funding for previously. Then currently you say, okay, we're looking for that 200K should use for R&D to fine tune our prototype, to enlarge our team and for our marketing and sales. And then many entrepreneurs are afraid to say what they're going to do in the future. They think, well, we already asked for 200K. If we say we're going to need 1.2 million in a year and a half, might scare away the investors. No, the investors come on board because they see the credibility. Oh, okay, in a year and a half, they're going to then start scaling up and moving into new markets with 1.2 million. Okay, how are they using that too? Oh, well, they used the money wisely previously. Now they're asking for this, and it looks like they make sense about that next follow-up financing. So it's credible. It makes sense how they're using their money wisely. And that's once we see that, then we want to know then the big A, the funding requirements. So for how much? 200K for 10%, and which then gives you that pre-money valuation of about 2 million. We're using our funds for this. And and that we are looking for, and it would be great to have this particular angel investor who, in a particular sector, who could help us, or maybe with marketing or finance while we're growing our team. And then I always like, after you have your big ask, is what are your 5 top reasons to invest? So like, why invest? Besides that it's disruptive technology, or you have this dynamic team, what are some, gems? It's kind of like back to a call to action. It's like coming back saying, why should you invest in our company? And it kind of reminds them, that, hey, this is why you should invest. These are my 5 top reasons. And then you close with your logo and your visuals and things. So this is kind of like a very kind of fast forward kind of me kind of giving you a pitch workshop in a pitch, because there's a lot of different details that also give you, I would have liked to go a little bit more, giving you examples, of different companies, but I wanted to give you some tools first, because I also, when giving examples, is, for example, when I was got interested in investing in a company with bees, and at the moment I wasn't really into the bees as much. I mean, I knew that we have that, there's less and less bees, but when they were pitching, they came into their story. They were like, my great grandfather was a beekeeper, my grandfather was a beekeeper, and I'm a beekeeper. And that, look at these crops. And he's showing pictures of the crops now, and then how they're getting dry, and then what's going to happen in 20 years. I was like, whoa, this is quite, and he was saying how many bees, are less and less. So I was like, wow, that's quite. And because of like his story, and then he found a CTO that was able to do the big data with these urban beehivings, where you can have these beehives on your balcony, in Paris, Milano, in these big cities, and you don't need the bee gear, and you can actually see how the bees are making honey. So it's actually could be like a hobby, because you can see where the queen bee is. And so then I had all these ideas that, they could really scale up, because they could create communities, even with their own honeys, with others, and children can actually have like their pet queen bees and learn a lot about the bee. And you can actually be saving the bees and helping make an impact and contributing to it with your urban beehives. So you see, how did that get me to want to invest? The storytelling. The guy knows about his bees. I mean, his great grandfather was a beekeeper. He was smart to get the right CTO to come on board with the big data. I was having all these ideas of how they could scale up. So it showed that they could go into different verticals. And it's called Being, BEEING, and how they can go into different verticals also to scale up. So for me, it was like, wow. And then also they can have like these kind of IKEA type urban beehives. And then for those that want to put them in the garden, they could have like the Roche-Beaubois, more luxury. So you see, this is where the ideas, the scalability, where you feel that the company can go, the passion, that they were going to save the bees. They were also making foundations. They started doing education, and it's become quite an interesting company. So you see, that's where these type of companies quite important. Like when we also say dual use technologies, also think about your company, and dual use. We had Viva Jets, which is electric ski jets. And this was for, water sports for amateurs, sport people. And actually, military and defense got interested, because they said, these are speedy and rapid, silent, and the perimeters are a bit larger, so we can transport our ammunition and supplies. Military defense got interested. They never thought that these ski jets were going to become like military defense. So even someone doing probiotic non-alcoholic beer that enhances sport performance and reduces muscle fatigue. Well, they were doing for athletes. What happened? NASA and NATO got interested, because for their soldiers, their military, their astronauts, better go have hidden mana probiotic and getting some more muscle and sport performance, rather than drinking Heineken and not being as up performance. So that's what got those different sectors. So it's always for you to think too, like, could this be dual use? Can I move other verticals? And one thing I want to leave you with too is, it's always about the scalability. Where's your finish line? And the finish line is always so important. That's why it's like, what's your purpose and passion? How are you getting to the finish line? How are you going to scale up? And that's why for an investor, they want to know, like they want focus. So they're like, okay, this is the target customer. This is who we're going to address, first, this particular vertical. But if you can actually scale up in other verticals, well, let's say you can go into health, you can go into mental health, brain health, or you can go into other education or not. That's where it becomes interesting for the investor, because they see that you can move into other verticals, and that to scale up, that brings more profitability and grows the business. So that's always important to be able to endorse, what you're doing, is to be able to show that scalability. I wanted to, but I see I don't have time, because I wanted to share with you so that you understood a little bit more, my kind of story on how running a marathon is like running a startup, because that was where my passion and purpose was. My father, he was a top cardiovascular thoracic surgeon. He invented the pacemaker. He was an electrical engineer, turned heart surgeon. So his background, so it's even me, ballet turned economist, angel investor, etc. It's showing that, we have a life in a life. You have to realize some of the things you're doing, it may not make sense, but when you look back, all the dots in your life will all interconnect, and you'll realize that, oh, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I'm getting there. And that's where and for me, I think it was like, I hate running, and it was but I saw, 3 days before this marathon of Paris, that I thought, if I could grieve, my father, and handle the challenge of, because he was my role model. He was an innovator. He saved lives. I mean, people who have a pacemaker, it prolongs their life for 20 years. And but he was modest. Nobody knew. All his patients never knew. He did all of these innovations, and until the day he died, with his obituary. And so I felt I had to do this marathon, to give homage. And I hate running, never ran more than 5K. But what did I, and I had 3 days to prepare. I would never tell you to prepare 3 days and go run off. This was a different situation, but it was showing that, you see, my passion purpose was for my father. That got me through those last 10 kilometers, because I would have never gotten through 10 kilometers. But when I was preparing, I found a mentor, where I'm saying it's always good to have a mentor. That's why this program, also what they're doing with MetaHeritage, and also and with their programmings, mentoring is important too, to accompany you along the way, because and that's why I got someone who does marathons. And when she heard that I said I want to do this marathon, she thought I was crazy, because she says, you've never ran more than a kilometer with me. And until she found that, and I said, well, no, it's kind of for my father. She goes, oh, passion and purpose. So she said, okay, I'll come with you. So she accompanied me. But you see, how did I use my mentor? I told my mentor never ran more than 5 kilometers. So we said, okay, our milestones, which is the same in your company milestones. What are your milestones? What are you planning to do? You have to already think about that in the beginning of your company, all the way to the finish line. So you have to already think, do I want to go IPO? Do I want to be unicorn? Do I want to grow? Do I want to go international? Or do I just want to be, and there's nothing wrong with being the leader of France, or the leader of Talent, or the leader, but that's where you want to, you have to know already from the very beginning, because that helps you to know what your milestones are to get there. And for me, the milestones was 5 kilometers times 8, 5 times 8, because in my mind, I'm just running 5 kilometers. And then what do I say to all my entrepreneurs? Celebrate the small wins. Not just, when you get the big money and you're saying that, okay, I just exited the company, I got acquired, okay, I'm going to Bora Bora. But the small wins. So when you get that grant, or when you get that customer, go get a bottle of champagne, or go do something that you always wanted to do. So for me, it was like, after 5 kilometers, my celebrate to win. My mentor ran ahead of me, got a double espresso. And so I always had a double espresso every 5 kilometers to help me get through the next. But that got me through those milestones. Now, I also told my mentor, where are my pain points? So my pain points were the forests, because there's no monuments. You don't see the Notre Dame. You don't see Bastille. You don't see the Arc de Triomphe. You see nothing, just trees, trees, trees. And for me, that's like not going forward. That's like staying in one place. So it's the same in your company. What are your pain points? Is it raising money? Is it growing the team? Is it going to new markets? where are those pain points? And that's what you have to let your mentor know, and that's what you have to discuss as a team. And that's why when I got into the first forest with all those trees, my mentor, she didn't notice, she saw tears coming down my eyes as I was running, because actually the playlist that I listened to about my father with the music came on. So I started thinking about my father and some memories. And she actually said, Audra, think of this as meditation in motion. Think about your father, the good things all. And she was looking, she goes, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm doing that. It's okay. And I kept running. I got through that part. And then it was kind of like smooth sailing. So it's the same. You got through your pain point. You finally got the funding. But then you're thinking, okay, it's good. You know, we're moving. We got the money. And then all of a sudden, what? Oh, Series A. Now we have to go to the VCs. And now they want the bottom line. And now we're going to have to do it all over again. Oh, when we just thought that we were just getting there. Then here comes the pain again. But that's where, again, you know, it's like me with the forest, you know, the next pain. And that's why my mentor, knowing the bigger pain, which is also, you know, you're getting bigger, Series A, it's a bigger, you know, bigger risks and this and that, was she said she actually had someone come and kind of accompany her because she knew she was going to need help on those 10 kilometers too. But for me, when people would say, what was that big strategy of you, those last 10 kilometers? You know, there wasn't any big formula for me. I mean, my formula was actually, I was very, very angry and I just had this constructive anger. You know, you could see a lot of emojis going up there in my head, not very nice emojis, you know, but it was, but you see, it was constructive anger, because that's what you need too. When you start getting demotivated, or you feel like, you know, oh, I just keep getting the no's, or those customers are just not, you know, signing on the contract, you know, it's you know, I just keep, I mean, I've already had 10 no's, maybe I should just give it up. You know, why do I even do this? That's usually when you're this close to succeeding. I actually almost threw my fleuret, which was embarrassing for my son. I should have never showed him that. He's a French champion in fencing. I help him with you know, the mindset. And actually, I was the one throwing the fleuret in the bleachers like a 14-year-old kid. But you know, my son came back to me. Why are you in the competition if you think you're going to lose? Mom, you know, you still can win on the elimination match. You got 0 on all the matches, but there's the elimination match. So you still got one last chance. And I was ready to just drop it all. But then I thought, I have to show my son. I can't just, you know, give up. Then he'll give up the rest of his life. So I gave it that last, was missing some touches. Then my son said, get more aggressive. I got more aggressive, started attacking. I ended up with a huge bronze medal, the first national competition that I did, bronze medal, and then bronze medal next. But I was this close to quitting. So how would I have known? So that's why, you know, my point is, like, you need to sometimes have this constructive anger, you know, to kind of push you, kind of like give yourself a spanking, move yourself forward. You know, it's not so, you know, so that's and so just to end, you know, is that I got to the last 500 meters. There was a huge teddy bear. I didn't realize that it was the cardiac for premature babies, you know, association. And actually, they used the non-invasive surgery of my father. And I didn't know they sponsored that marathon. So I felt like my father was like, you did it, go girl, 500 meters. You don't need to prove anything to me anymore. Get to the finish line. So that's something I want to share with you, is because I really saw, you know, that through that experience, I would actually say everybody should once in their life do a marathon, even if they're just walking, you know, because it's those last 10 kilometers that I don't know who's done a marathon here, but it's you got to find it in your mind, those last 10 kilometers. And so, and I think because now it's kind of like, I've had, you know, 4 years ago, my father died, then my godfather, the next year, my mother, you know, my dog, and then just yesterday, my father-in-law. But what's keeping me pushing, you know, actually it's you guys. You guys are getting me through what I just lost yesterday. So I could be a little bit in tears now, but, you know, I want to be able to, because I feel that, you know, it was meant, you know, today you have your workshop. I want to inspire you to go to the finishing line. I want you to know that there's ups and downs. I want you to have a perfect little blitz, whether it's 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute, and to craft your story. Never leave your purpose and passion, even with VCs. It's always about your storytelling. And I want to wish you all the luck.
Wow, Audra. I think this was not a training. This was one of the most motivational speech I ever heard. First of all, I wanted to thank you because I know your personal situation. You explained it to me yesterday, and you're here giving it all, giving your energy and your passion. Second, I love the beekeeping story. I think I'm like Pilar. I think I'm going to dig into it because I'm obsessed with animals and I love bees. And also, you know what? I had this idea in mind, and I've always thought about my ideas. Let's say stupid. I think I cannot go forward, but why not? This is what you gave me today, and I'm really thankful. It was really nice. It was really interesting. You gave a lot of practical tools, a lot of, I think, energy in order to not give up. I think that is the main message from you is going to be a hard road, but just not get up. So I think it was very interesting. Thank you so much, Audra. And I saw that there were a couple of questions on the chat, and I wanted to double check with you, Audra. There's Harold, that was asking if we could upload the slide, the presentation. Can we upload it on our website?
Yes,
That would
definitely.
be a
Because now
problem.
that you understand the sequence, because if someone
Yep.
just looks at the slide sequence before, you'll never understand why there's a sequence and why it's so important, every element after each one. Each slide is endorsing the one before it. So now
Yes.
that this is, again, remember, these are like your 3, 5, 10-minute pitches that blitz.
Yeah, and I think it will be very complementary with the call because that will help people in order to prepare their pitch and upload the proposition in the website. So thank you so much. I see also that Pilar requested the name of the bee company. I was looking for it as well. I found it, that is there, is being. And we have people who thanking you because it was really nice and you were, I don't know, a lot of good energy. I think I'm almost finishing my week with a big smile in my face. I don't know if anybody from the public is wanting to ask anything. Is your time? If not, you can always write us to the MetaHeritage. We will be happy to help you. And you see, there's a lot of big fans, Audra. And if there's any question, it's now or never. So please raise your hand or we give you yeah.
So I'm
No
happy,
questions?
anything that you feel like. I think there's one, Alice.
Yeah, Alice. So I'm going to give you, I don't know if you can turn your micro. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, go for it.
Hello, Audra. I would like to know if I could get in touch with you because I believe I need somebody like you in my life.
We all need Audra in our life, I think. Yeah.
No, yes, definitely. But no, I'm happy. I mean, as you can see, I'm quite passionate in what I do. I'm also, as I told you, an angel investor. So, if and those become in my family, whether it's through these type of programs or not, whoever was attending, I'm happy that if you need like a little bit of a quick look at something or, just kind of a boost on something, I'm happy to, you could, Eliane, you can give them my contact information, and I'm happy, to help with, some of those things you may have.
We have something similar. I've danced ballet from 3 to 14. And I've started my company for 5 years, and it's been not easy, but now I feel more motivated to continue to do what I want to do. And thank you very much for that.
Yeah. I started when I was 3. I was professional at 14, and that's what actually brought me to Paris. I was dancing with the ballet company in south of France, but I had recurrent tendonitis, had to reconsider the career. But you see, you don't know your lives. I mean, I would never think I'd go become an economist, entrepreneur, angel investor, advising European commissions, and then being a fencer, and which actually fencing was with the lunges and the ballet originated from fencing. So it became another sport, but I was able to pick it up probably faster, also for horse show jumping, you have the back and even though my feet go like this, that's why I do horse show jumping, because dressage, because of ballet, I'm too much like this still. But that's what I wanted to leave you guys with too, that, just like a company where you sometimes have to pivot the business model, it will pivot, from as you're growing, you always have to be in touch with your team. I always believe every 3 to 6 months to bring your whole team together to say, are we going in the same direction? Have things shifted? Should we pivot the model? It's very important. Is it going ahead? And then also that reminds me, because with Alice bringing, with competition, it's good to know your competition. That's why we want to see the landscape and things. But remember, don't get obsessed with it, because you see Coca-Cola, they when Pepsi came out and Virgin Cola and Cherry Cola stuff, they came out with New Coke, and they did not. New Coke went bankrupt. Nobody wanted New Coke. They liked the classic. So actually, if they had just been more innovative in their marketing, like look, Stan Smith, Adidas, they did, all they did was change the colors and stuff. Got some influencers, didn't change the shoe. And it became, everybody was wearing Stan Smith Adidas. So sometimes it's innovative in the marketing, but you have to keep your vision, because sometimes people say, oh, this competitor did this, so we better do that. And that one did that, so we do. And you lose your vision. You lose where your finishing line. It's good to see, where you are, what's happening, but you keep your vision and your objectives. That's what gets you closer to the finish line. I think Harold?
Yes, Harold has a question, yes.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you for all the nuggets in your gold mine. It truly was very enjoyable to listen to everything, and also definitely like to speak with you. I have an amazing story to tell. So
okay,
I think that's all the time we have today, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yes,
thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah. And also, I mean, just I want to just mention, I see David here, from Gupsport, on the and actually he was in one of our pitch events. And very good project, but then of course there always has to be just one, but, I've been seeing David, very forward thinking. I've seen him on the different events. He even came to this one, because he's still pushing, moving forward, taking those next steps, because each step you make, and even if, for example, it didn't work out because it was a very close one on that pitch event, but it didn't work out there, still those who were at the event, and then seeing at the next one, and then seeing, as you're, still moving forward, things, all start coming together in the end. But it's those who actually keep pushing forward, and also like keeping the context of the network, always, I've had like, there was a company called Blocksport, and he was always saying good things and recognition for his first mentor, his first investors. He's now scaling completely up, but he's always going back to all of the smart money, the people, the mentors, everything, always thanking them, keeping them up. And that's why he's building his inner circle. He's building his team of those around him that's not in the team, but a team around him that are following him along the way. And so that's something also for you to remember, is that is to always keep your networks of people within your inner circle throughout to the development of your company. The good ones.
The good ones, yes, that is very important. But that, I think, is very important as well for me as a personal. I just started in the European projects, and I see that network and having contacts is very essential in order to move forward. There's no way differently than that. And yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions within the participants. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Santiago? I have Santiago as well and David. But I think Santiago is on the chat. I have a question. Do you think it's a good idea to recontact a potential client that I think they weren't sure about how heritage documentation will benefit them financially and taking care of the heritage building? How should I approach them?
Yes, most definitely. Because again, sometimes it's because, you're ahead of the timing. It's actually similar to one of my colleagues, who's the AI guru and was doing all of this AI and art and doing a lot, with cultural heritage and things. But he was too ahead of the timing. And then, when I was actually seeing this program and the different things that were going on with this consortium, I was telling him, look, now it looks like everybody's kind of ready for that. So you could have been a little bit ahead of the timing. And so that's why it's good. And then, or, maybe you didn't have some of your own, you didn't accomplish certain milestones that made them feel like they were ready to jump on board. So if you've also evolved and moved forward, and you feel that with the timing that they would understand better where they see the benefits, then I would definitely, go back.
Okay. David?
Yeah.
Raise hand from David.
Yeah, thank you so much. Audra, thank you very much for a brilliant session, and it was really encouraging. And we also follow this line, like never give up, and every obstacle is a challenge and motivation to overcome it. But on the other hand, we have also heard die fast. What do you think about this comparing one to another? Die fast and never give up. How they...
Oh, you mean die fast? Well, it is kind of a little like for investors. Sometimes, we've invested in a company and then it's not really, growing as it should. And then we're like, okay, let's put some follow-up money because, we don't want them to die, because we've already put money. So we tried to put in, but sometimes we do have to tell ourselves, sometimes you got to kill the puppy. It's terrible to say the puppy, because you never want to kill the puppy. It's terrible. Like I never liked that. Like kill the puppy. But the thing, but it's kind of meaning, okay, it doesn't look like that company's going to grow anymore. It doesn't make sense anymore to put more money, into that company. But if you're talking from like an entrepreneur side, again, take this example. It's the best thing I could give you for the moment. I don't know if you saw it, but this Netflix documentary, true story of that woman swimmer. She used to be a swimmer when she was, young. Then she went and did a completely different career. Then at 60, she was talking to her friend and said, gosh, I'm like 60, I feel like I need to do something with my life, and she goes, so, I want to go and swim, from Cuba to Florida to whatever, in the sea. And I don't know if you saw that documentary, but okay, watch it because it's a good documentary, true story. Because her friend said, well, you didn't do it when you were 28, so why do you think you're going to do it now at 60 with your physical, it's not possible. She was my mindset. And see, that's what I understood too. When I was a ballet dancer, I didn't have the same mindset as I do as an athlete now. And which way I was able to go quite quickly, quite competitively, and it was the mindset at 50. But she, so her friend said, okay, fine, but I don't see, it's just not the mind. It's going to get you in that waters, but you're not 28 again. And when she was 60, they went, but there were these jellyfish that were poisonous, and she had to stop the swimming thing. So they went the next year, she had her team, they tried again, same thing. Then they said, okay, 3 strikes, you're out, let's try the third. They tried the third, same freaking jellyfish problem. So then the team was like, look, we put so much money in this. So when you're saying die first, so much money, we have families, this and this, this is like, you're in your 60s, I don't know if you're having a midlife crisis, still trying this, whatever, but they were like, we got lives, these jellyfish, it's not gonna, you can't get rid of these jellyfish. And she just was like, no, she goes, really the last time, just the last. And then they made a mask and put her in some kind of gear, but they made a mask, for her face, which was not very comfortable. And at 65, she went through swimming and made it at 65. So that's my point, is that you, when you're saying die first, it's more like, what are the other solutions? So she could have kept doing that, and just hoping a jellyfish doesn't come. But they went and found that, okay, let's try that mask. It's not great, but this is the best we can do to get through it. So they did a lot of trial and error, this and that. They kind of pivoted, they put the mask on. So that's my point too. You have to you can't be stubborn, still going the same way, and then saying, okay, well, it's not happening. Sometimes you have to open your eyes, look and say, okay, maybe the target market is not the right one, or maybe I'm not with the right team, or because again, like I'm saying, I think where I would say is that you want to kill and die what's the bottleneck, but not kill and die your passion and the impact you're making, what you believe you can do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kill the way, but not the target.
Great message. We have a little bit reached the end of the session, so we're going to take the last question from Stephanie, because she reached out. How do you need to see in a solo founder what do you need to see in a solo founder to invest? Can do solo rounders hire a brilliant team investor?
Yeah, most people, most investors, they won't invest in a solo. They'll say, that's why I said why they expect at least 3 on a team, because one who makes the product, one who sells it, and then one managing the finance management of the team and stuff, because even but if we've had that have come to our networks where they were solo, but they had on their advisory board, they had the Facebook, marketing director of the US, they had, the commercial director or something, of Google. They had these big corporates and these other big that was in their industry. And we were like, wow, this advisory board's quite, strong. And so we said, look, you need to get a good CTO and, someone at least to help you, because you can't do everything. And they were saying, well, CTO, I don't have that's why I'm looking for investment. And we said, look, if you can't get a CTO to jump on board, believing in what you're doing and you wanting to help and get to that finish line, then there's something that's not right how you're communicating or what you're doing with your project, because you should be able to get people on board interested in helping you get, to your finishing line. And so he did come back, with a CTO, and he had his good advisory board. And so, we invested, but because he was a founder with a good idea, vision, business model, that's why, again, advisory board is very important. I don't know if you remember Elizabeth Taranas, that was that fraud, with the prick of a finger, and she was valued billions, and she was a dropout from Stanford, and she was really good at pitching, but this was not an app. She was pitching like it was an app. This was biotech. And but the thing is, why people were jumping on board, though, was because she had such a big advisory board and people wanted to be with Henry Kissinger and all. But where the red flags was when they want to blame the founder, it was actually the investors, because this is a biotech company. So where's the scientific council? Where's all the scientists? Why does she have politicians all over? So, so that's why. Also, what helps give credibility is investors, always look at the advisory board who can help. And on your management team, if you can identify it and say that, we have a gap, with this marketing and sales, but, with my expertise in the commercial and with this freelancer to help, on a freelance basis, and with my advisory board member, because you can always find advisory member. This is not administrative board, with votes. Advisory board members are, kind of like mentors, supporting. They believe in what you're doing. They also kind of want to follow along the journey. So some of them are with a bit of sweat equity, they kind of, accompanying you along. And they're also that if they're not being as active anymore, they can easily go. So as you build your advisory board, sometimes you can also build where they're very good at one moment, and then, you can bring on new ones, as you're growing, when you need them. That gives you that thing. So as you're saying, also, can, solo founders hire a brilliant team and invest in them? Yes, I mean, there are some where you have those kind of also incubators, accelerators, where they actually say for founders that they can come and then they help, there's those who want to jump on board startups. So they want to, with their expertise, you can find those to kind of join you through these different type of programs and accelerators. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but
it looks like she said thank you. Thank you so much, Audra. I think we are all leaving this training with a big smile on our face. It was very interesting. You shared your passion with us. I think is already somewhere in all my body, and I think from everybody's. And it was very interesting. So, if anybody has an idea, do not give up. Maybe your idea is going to change the world tomorrow. So do not, in regards with MetaHeritage, as a reminder, if you are in our field, digitalization in cultural heritage, and you have a passion related with history, heritage, or anything, do not hesitate to go to our website and share your idea with us. Maybe it could change something in the future. Okay. And thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a beautiful and wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
Audra.
Audra.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Elaine.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a million.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Audra. It was wonderful.
Okay. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you, Audra. I'll be in touch.
Okay, yes, definitely.
Thanks.